So as I was saying, basically once you have a leftist foothold in society, more or less, and you know, and the narrative starts shifting to the far left, which it's been doing. Essentially, you see quality of life go down. Just that's not arguable. That's not up for debate. You see quality of life go down, and you see things really go down the drain quick. And you know, and that could be, I guess, arguable, right? Because you know, generally, what is the left for? Open borders, more immigration. They view race as a social construct. They view gender as a social construct. They are blatantly like frothing at the mouth anti-science, when yet they're
the party of science.
They're the party of science, right? They call the right anti-science, and they point to one or two Republicans somewhere in the middle of the Rust Belt that are evangelicals. They may or may not have said some stupid shit, like, you know, maybe they hold stupid views on rape or whatever, what have you. I'm not denying that there's a lot of middle Americans,
but you know
that are, but they point to those two like they speak for me and you. Meanwhile, they're in droves advocating for, I mean, just transparently false notions of what isn't. And yet, do you know what I'm saying? In other words, we're not allowed to generalize, at all. But yet,
they generalize us, 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the same problem that the left has with Christianity and with Republicans who are Christian and hold a very Christian worldly view. They don't have the same problem with people who are Muslim or Islam. The left.
Well, because
they
they're
have this
mostly
unholy alliance with them,
right?
And like they're afraid to criticize Islam for the exact same thing that they're criticizing Christianity about. So you know, in the West, you know, America is probably the most that I know. Well, it's definitely out of all the white countries, or countries with a lot of white people, America is probably the most religious, Christianity-wise, right? There's no other country. I don't think there's any European nations that are, you know, have the level of.
Well, yeah, Europe embraced secularism way before us.
Europe, Canada, Australia is very secular. So America, we still have a lot of you know, Christians in this country, and there's like a war against them from the left. And I'm an atheist, so to me to point out a war against Christianity as an atheist, you know, it speaks volume.
Yeah.
The entire Middle East, and even in other countries that are not in the Middle East, in Africa and some in Asia, that are all, well, the rest of Asia, the Middle East is a part of Asia, but the other parts of Asia, that are all Islamic countries, they're very religious, very, very religious. And, you know, they have
fundamentalist. So.
Draconian rules. I mean, you
Absolutely.
know, it's not safe to be gay in these countries.
Not at all.
And the left won't criticize that.
Well, that's because most Islamic folks, obviously there's Muslims of all races and creeds, I mean not creeds, races and colors, but predominantly Islam is the religion of the brown man, right? So by de facto, they're more virtuous than you. They're just be quiet, bigot, because they've been oppressed enough. You know, even though let's not mention that right now as we speak. Today we're speaking in Libya, you can buy an African American for roughly $400.
Right.
As a result of Obama's and Hillary's policy, I repeat, as a result of Obama's policies for destabilizing the region, and as a matter of fact, I think Hillary was Secretary of State at the time. No, it's just nobody wants to talk about these things because, well, Obama could do no wrong, either, right? But whatever, I'm not going to bring him up because, you know, Obama left, blah blah blah. He's irrelevant, you know, not like his actions and policies have ramifications today, but not like I expect any consistency from those on the left. So whatever.
Right.
That horse is beat to death.
You know, he left, but the damage is done. It's like, you know. But, you know, this is something that they do in politics all the time. So when Trump is out of office and the next president comes in, and then when we bring up policies or whatever.
Yeah, they're going to say,
well, what does he have to do with it? Because when Obama became president, the argument was between Bush. You know,
absolutely.
You know, it was, well, what did Bush have to do with this? You know, he's gone. And it's like, when Bush came into office, it was like, but what about Clinton? It's like, well, what does Clinton have to do with this? So, yeah, this is an argument everybody has. And
I think that the left is a lot more proficient at mastering these double standards. For instance, let me bring up a contemporary current event issue where you had the Covington Catholic incident, right? Now you had this kid who was a victim of this, I guess you could say, anti-white mob, right? You had the black Hebrew Israelites, you know, and this is like 2 hours of footage yelling these atrocities at him, and we're very familiar with these people because I mean, we live in New York, so if you go into the city, at times you find them, standing on the
Times Square. You'll find
there's a whole,
Brooklyn.
there's a whole, where they preach like blatant anti.
They have a church in Harlem off of 125th
Right, where they basically preach
anti-whiteness.
Yeah, in general. I mean,
and you'll see no leftists down there fighting against racism.
Right, they're very anti. They're very anti.
They're anti-gay.
Asian, anti-everything.
Anti-gay.
Right.
Yep.
And so basically, we're very familiar with these people. Pretty much these kids that were a victim of them, and then you had this Nathan Phillips come in and essentially beat this drum 4 inches away from
the kid's face.
Same man's face.
Right.
And basically, so the general sentiment was, according to all the lefties in a box and the HuffPost and now this and the Huffington Post and all that, they were all like, well, you got to respect your elders. Meanwhile, I mean, Trump is a lot older than a lot of these people there, and where's their respect for the elder? You understand? So essentially, they have no problem. They have mastered the skill, which I give it to them. They've mastered the strategy of using our very notions of morale against us, because most people on the right, and I say this loosely, but most folks on the right, generally very reluctant when it comes to confrontation. They're very just, just live and let live, right? You got the libertarian crowd, you got the pro-Trumpers, we just want to, be left alone, which is really why a lot of folks are supporting this wall. Because, we could give you all the facts and whatnot, but it doesn't matter. So essentially, these people have mastered, once again, rules for radicals, Saul Alinsky. They've really mastered this inherently Marxist tactic that that it's like a bar of soap. It's like just keep slipping out of your hand, and there's really no pinpointing, which is why a lot of folks on the right, the general sentiment is that we're dealing with an enemy that has no morals. Well, you don't really double down on your morals and principles as you abandon them, because it's a losing strategy. And
constantly making excuses for people who are perceived to be members of their side. So when you look at what's going on with immigration, you have a lot of illegal immigrants here in the country. You have illegal aliens that sneak through the border all the time, and some of them commit serious crimes. And yet the sentiment still is, that
let them in just because.
Let them in just because, and
they're just in search of a better life.
And we're racist for bringing up the fact that there's a disproportionate number of violent crimes being committed within the immigrant community. Now we're not talking about the illegal immigrants, right? Because typically the ones that come in here through the process are typically good people. They're not, they're just as bad as all the rest of the groups that are here, as far as percentage wise of crime, or whatever the case may be. But the illegal ones that come into the country, the gangs, the cartels, sneaking in drugs, weapons, sex trafficking, the amount of crimes, and even the ones that come here and they're just drunks, the ones that are sneaking in here, that are just complete drunks that end up in and out of prison, getting arrested, multiple times. They're arrested 3, 4, 5 times. They're deported, 7, 8, and they're deported.
And now
they come right back.
To deport those because according to the law,
sanctuary cities.
Right. And the truth is, look, I give you a few statistics. There's some just stuff I jotted down, and I hope that the audience listening really does fact check me on this, because last thing I want to do is spread misinformation. I'm not a lefty, right? So basically, you have, even assuming, let's say most of them are good people, which I have no problem going with that notion. Let's say, for example, most of them are hardworking, genuinely kind-hearted, decent people.
Right,
let's say, for example, let's say that be the case. For instance, let me generalize all of them for the sake of hypotheticalness, if that's even a word. Let's say they're all good people. Well, the fact remains that according to the CIS, which is the Center for Immigration Studies, you have welfare usage among households headed by immigrants from Central America and Mexico at roughly around 73%. Okay, that means that 3 out of every 4 households are some notion of public benefits. For those from Africa, about 48%. Those from East Asia, about 32%. And those from Europe, at roughly about 26%. Now, when you shout out these statistics, right? It doesn't matter how accurate your information is, right? Or for instance, I'll give you one better. You go to the IRLI.org, which is the Immigration Reform Law Institute, and according to FAIR, which is a Federation for Immigration Reform, so you have the statistic of illegal immigration costing us roughly about $116 billion annually, right? Which is approximately a $16 billion increase compared to previous estimates. So This is just according to a new study by FAIR. So you have, Mexico being the third largest remittance receiving country in the world, okay?
Right.
Which isn't really, peanuts, but that aside, the total of, this is according to 2015, as far as we know, that you have a total of $25.7 billion received in 2015 alone. And roughly about 500 million of that 25.7 billion was predicted to come from sources outside the U.S. So essentially you have probably a good quarter of their GDP coming from the U.S. in remittances, which is money not spent in our economy, money outsourced elsewhere, and the vast majority of these arguments that you could dispel and you could just read off to people. Once again, it doesn't really concern them because once again, on a visceral level, the policies we are in support of, more or less. Will pit them against us just because of the fact that we are for preventative measures to keep more people out that look like them, and so thereby by de facto we will forever be their enemies because we don't care. And why would Mexico be prospering and benefiting as a result of leeching off us be a bad thing? Hell yeah, go Mexico. If I'm Mexican or Central American, why would I not want my country to do well? So therefore, if anything, the more statistics we read off probably further radicalizes them, if that makes sense. So they're kind of like, yeah, this is good. So yeah, well, open borders. I want to see that number in their mind. I'm guessing they want to see that number go from 25.7 billion. Hey, why not 50 billion?
Right. All that taxpayers' expense.
Exactly. And so in their mind, you're not gonna. There's only so much you could reason with unreasonable people because once again, this is on a visceral, genetic, instinctual level of more people like me coming in is good, and you preventing that is bad. You understand?
Right.
So it doesn't really, and I just, this goes for mostly your civic nationalist boomers out there that pretty much, are very disillusioned when it comes to a lot of what's going on. But unfortunately, this isn't the America that they were accustomed to, the America they experienced, or the America that they grew up in.
Right.
And it would be. It would be beneficial and it would behoove them and us if we all sort of acknowledged these problems, and these societal ills, because it's not going to go away unless some kind of action is taken. And I don't know, you guys decide what that is, but it's just it doesn't matter how accurate your information is, how updated your how well reasoned, how thought out your arguments are. It doesn't matter to them because
it don't because they can always just shout out racist and Nazi and white supremacist.
And when enough of them,
it's funny because as a Jew, we were always taught that what a white supremacist was someone who hated us.
Yeah,
right. Klansmen, neo-Nazis, Aryan Brotherhood, skinheads,
all that.
Groups like that were the white supremacists that hated everyone. Now, to the left, a white supremacist is anyone who doesn't agree with them.
Literally.
Or a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Or a Republican, period. Plain and simple. If you're on the right,
the new MAGA hat is the new hood.
It's the new Klan hood.
Yeah,
so
people really believe that. Yeah.
Supporting your president now makes you a white supremacist. Disagreeing with them, I mean, I'll have a disagreement with them over any issue. I mean, the slightest issue, and it's like I'm called a Nazi. It's like, what do you call me a Nazi for? We're talking about the minimum wage. What do you call me a Nazi for? We're talking about maybe a policy in foreign relation, or we're talking about a certain requirements to get into the military or something, or to get into Harvard, and you call me a white supremacist or a Nazi. It's like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, where's the connection? And then the thing about it is like you'll call us a white supremacist while just berating us for being white.
Literally, yeah.
You'll just berate us and treat everyone else as the virtuous ones because of the color of their skin, while calling us Nazis and belittling us. And it's like, well, maybe you're a people of color supremacist. Maybe maybe you're a gay homosexual supremacist and a woman supremacist and whatever the case may be.
Well, I mean that's what I ardently believe, because if you look at I guess you could say right-wing Republican, what have you, policies just throughout the years. Essentially, a lot of conservative talking points, as accurate as they may be, have really just been proxies, more or less, for white interests.